So what we're going to do today is laws of chemical combination. Your first law is your law of conservation of mass. Now this is a very basic law. Just like you have law of conservation in energy, you have law of conservation of mass. The law says whenever you have a chemical reaction taking place, okay, nuclear reactions gurinchi maatladaledu manam, whenever you have a chemical reaction taking place, the amount of substances in the beginning will be equal to the amount of substances in the end, or your mass can neither be created nor destroyed, in simple words. Just like we say energy can neither be created nor destroyed, we have mass can neither be created nor destroyed. So దాని వల్ల నాకు ఏంటి లాభం అని అంటే, whenever you have to apply the law to chemical reactions in order to find out how much of gases were involved. ఇప్పుడు నేను ఒక రియాక్టెంట్ ఏ తీసుకొని మొదలు పెడతాను, అది డీకంపోజ్ అయ్యి నాకు ప్రొడక్ట్ బి ప్లస్ ప్రొడక్ట్ సి వచ్చింది. నాకు ఈ సి ప్రొడక్ట్ ఏంటో తెలీదు, ఎంత వెళ్ళిపోయిందో తెలియదు అనుకోండి. ఇఫ్ మై ఒరిజినల్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఏ ఇస్ 50 grams and I know the amount of B left after reaction is 30 grams, then even without knowing the reaction, even without knowing if there was a gas involved or no, and na kalla kanpichaledu mar gas release ayinappudu, but gas release ayinda ante yes, there must have been a gas released, because 50 grams is leaving back a residue of 30 grams, which means 20 grams must have been the mass of your gas that escaped. Let me give you an example. If you take limestone or calcium carbonate, let's say you don't know what the reaction is, and you started with 50 grams of calcium carbonate. Okay. After reaction, you observe that there is some residue left. You don't know what the residue is. You just know that there is some residue left. And the weight of that residue is 28 grams. So clearly, a residue ento teliyadu naku. Let's say you don't know the reaction antunanu. Of course, you guys know the reaction, but let's say you don't know the reaction. So even if you don't know the reaction, I know that 50 grams is leaving a residue of 28 grams, which implies there is definitely a gas involved. And the weight of the gas has to be the remaining 22 grams. So you don't know what the gas is. You don't know the stoichiometry of the reaction. And still you are able to find out what the weight of the gas is. Inkokati cheptanu. This reaction I'm pretty sure most of you don't know. So let's say I have baking soda. Okay, this is baking soda. For those of you who don't know, this is baking soda. So when I heat baking soda, I observe that there is a residue. Now I don't know if there is one gas or there are two gases, but I just know that there is a residue. And when I take baking soda, 16.8 grams తీసుకున్నాను in baking soda. Okay, I'm taking 16.8 grams baking soda, and I observe that residue is weighing 10.6 grams. Now I don't know if there is one gas or two gases or multiple gases. All I know is whatever gas or gases were involved. If this reaction, maybe most of you don't know. If you know, well and good. You can write and check with stoichiometry. But for those of you who don't know the stoichiometry, you can still tell me what is the weight of gases. How do you tell me the weight of gas or gases? So, actually in this reaction, you get gases, amma. Okay, so gas or gases ayundochu. In that reaction, obviously you know the reaction. You know it's calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide. So, this gas carbon dioxide and you people already know. Deen reaction, maybe most of you don't know. By baking soda heat cheste most of you don't know. You don't know the residue. You don't know the gas. So here the gases are actually carbon dioxide and water vapor, both of them. Okay. And you can find out the weight as 62 grams, 6.2 grams. So even though you don't know the stoichiometry, you are still able to tell me what is the loss of weight, which is your weight due to loss in the form of gases. Next, second law. Law of definite or constant proportion. Dintlo you will have sums in the law of conservation of mass law. Also you will have sums, but not exclusive law of conservation of mass sums. You can have a mixture with stoichiometry questions. So stoichiometry chesetappudu I will point out to you that it is actually an application of law of conservation of mass. Teliyakundane meer adi vaadtunnaru ani nenu meeku chupistanu. Okay. So law of definite proportions or law of constant proportions. That's what it's called. Definite or constant proportions. The original law is slightly different from the way I'm going to say it. Okay. The original law says, irrespective of your source for a particular compound, and it doesn't matter how you're getting the compound, whether you're getting it from a natural source or are you creating it in the lab, or is it available in the lab because you commercially bought it from outside. So it doesn't matter what your source for a particular compound is. The weights of the elements involved are always in a fixed proportion by weight. For example, the law says if you take water from a natural source like lake water or glacier melt ayindi dani nunchi water or intlo ice cubes unnayi dani melt chesi water or hydrogen and oxygen react chesi water or HCl plus NaOH reaction chesi dani nunchi water. Okay, so it doesn't matter what your source of water is. So irrespective of your source of water, I am going to always have hydrogen and oxygen in a fixed ratio by weight. So weight of hydrogen will be 2 grams and weight of oxygen will be 16 grams. Or indirectly, for every 2 grams of hydrogen, always 16 grams of oxygen will take part in the reaction. That's what it means. For every 2 grams of hydrogen, 16 grams of oxygen will always take part in the reaction. So they are fixed proportion by weight. Kani, నాకు ఇలా రాసే కంటే I prefer talking in terms of moles. So నేను క్లాస్లో ఎప్పుడు చెప్పినా సరే I will talk in terms of number of atoms. So I will always say H2O formula చూసి for every 2 atoms of hydrogen, always 1 atom of oxygen will take part. So no matter what your source of water is, always hydrogen and oxygen will be 2 atoms ke every 1 atom. ఇప్పుడు దీని applications ఎలా ఉంటాయి? How do I solve these, put this in terms of questions? So ఎట్లా ఇస్తానంటే in a sample of magnesium phosphate, if number of moles of magnesium is 0.6, so you have 0.6 moles of magnesium. ఎలా తెలిసింది మీకంటే ఏదో ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్ చేశారా and you found out. In a sample of magnesium phosphate, you have 0.6 moles of magnesium. I can ask you, how many moles of oxygen are there in it? Oxygen atoms, okay? Or phosphorus atoms. Let's make it phosphorus. How many moles of phosphorus atoms are there in it? This is the first type of question I can ask you in this. So application cheptunanu. How is this asked in questions? First one, numerical type of question. In a sample of magnesium phosphate, if 0.6 moles of magnesium is present, what is the amount of phosphorus? Okay, how do you do this now? So in a sample of magnesium phosphate, magnesium to phosphorus is always a fixed proportion kabatti. For every 3 moles of magnesium, for every 3 moles of magnesium, you always have 2 moles of phosphorus. This is fixed because it is law of constant or fixed proportion kabatti. For every 3 moles of magnesium, we always have 2 moles of phosphorus. So for 0.6 moles of magnesium, if the sample has 0.6 moles of magnesium, how much of phosphorus would it have? So do your crisscross method calculation and you get 0.6 into 2 by 3, you get 0.4 moles. Or in the same question, I could have asked you how much of oxygen is there? How many moles of oxygen? Ida adugundochu. Leda, asal best question is, how much magnesium phosphate would contain 0.6 moles of magnesium? How much magnesium phosphate would contain 0.6 moles of magnesium? Aa question ela cheyalo blue lo chestunnan chudandi. 1 mole of magnesium phosphate unte it contains 3 moles of magnesium, right? This is the interpretation that I have from yesterday. 0.6 moles of magnesium kavali ante any mole sample teeskoni undali. How much sample should I have taken? So for 1 mole of magnesium phosphate, we have 3 moles of magnesium, meaning in how much of magnesium phosphate would I have 0.6 moles of magnesium? That is the question. So again, I'm going to do crisscross method. It's not a difficult question. So your answer is 0.6 into 1 by 3, which is 0.2 moles. So in 0.2 moles of magnesium phosphate, I will have 0.6 moles of magnesium. So just by giving the amount of magnesium, I can ask you amounts of oxygen, phosphorus, which are its co-atoms, the other elements present in the substance. Or I can ask you how much of the sample itself was taken. All this I'm able to do because of law of definite proportion, because I know they have to be in a fixed ratio. So this is your first model question. Your second model question in this is a theoretical question. So how do theoretical questions come up in this? So if I have a sample of hydrocarbon, okay, in a sample of hydrocarbon A, carbon to hydrogen was measured and the percentage of carbon was 80% and the percentage of hydrogen was 20% by weight. In another sample of hydrocarbon B, the amount of carbon and hydrogen was estimated, and in terms of number of atoms ivochu, leda in terms of weight ivochu. In terms of weight, it was found that 12 grams of carbon was present for every 3 grams of. So what do A and B represent? Or what do A and B satisfy? What do A and B denote? These are the ways in which they ask. Now, sample A, the hydrocarbon A, has 80% carbon and 20% hydrogen. Sample B is in terms of weight. So either I convert painunadi into weight or I have to convert kindunadi into percentage. Do any one of them. You can't have one in terms of percentage and another in terms of weight. You have to convert both of them into the same concept, both in terms of weight or both in terms of percentage. So if I convert B, which is 12 grams and 3 grams, into percentages. So total weight anta 12 plus 3, 15 grams. That's the total weight. So what is the percentage of carbon? 12 by 15 into 100. So I'm also showing you how to calculate percentage of an element. Take the percentage of the element, divide by the total weight into 100. So ikkada kuda ante. Take the percentage of hydrogen, divide by the total weight into 100. Hydrocarbon anna kadamma, so it has only hydrogen and carbon. So the percentage of this is, that's 4 by 5 into 100, that's 80%. This is 1 by 5 into 100, which is 20%. So hydrocarbon A and hydrocarbon B, both of them have the same percentage of carbon is to hydrogen. So it means that, so what does this imply to me? It shows that A and B are the same hydrocarbon. A and B are the same hydrocarbon. So it represents law of definite proportion. It is an example of law of constant proportion. That's what it means. What if you got different percentages? Ala kuda ostaya? Yeah, sure, why not? If I just change one value, I'll get a different law. So let me change this. What if the percentages were 75% and 25%? Sample A has 75, 25. And sample B has 80 and 20. So this is 75, 25. I'm changing my sample. I'm taking a different question. So if I have this, then both the samples do not have equal percentages. Then they are not the same hydrocarbon. They are not the same hydrocarbon. In that case, what does it represent? Okay, the answer to that, I don't know right now, but I know for sure it is not law of definite proportion. Adenti, you said just now, Kada, that if you have the same compound, they should have the same percentages, Ani. Yes, I'm still saying that. If they are the same compound, they should have the same percentage. So if they have different percentages, it obviously implies that they are not the same compound. So they are obviously different compounds. They're not the same compound, which implies that they are different compounds. Ala kuda undocha? Yeah, why not? Take the example of hydrogen and oxygen itself. Do they form only one compound? No, they form water, they form hydrogen peroxide. They have different compounds, kada? But if you have the same compound, then they have to have same weight. And if they have the same weight, it means they are the same compound. A implies B, B implies A. Okay, I'm writing it. If they have the same percentages of the elements, it implies that they are the anni elements the same percentage undalamma. Okay. If there are more than 2 elements, then all the 3 have to match. So if they have the same percentages of elements, then they are the same compound. If they do not have the same percentage of elements, then they are different compounds. And vice versa could have valid. Ante, if they are the same compound, then they will have same percentages. If they're the same compound, they will have the same percentage. If they are different compounds, they will obviously have different percentages. So A implies B, B implies A. Double implication ikkada. Okay. So this is your second law. So what are the 2 types of sums in your second law? I will give you amount of magnesium and ask you for amount of phosphorus. That's your first kind of sum. Or I'll give you two samples. I'll give you their percentages. Compare if they are the same. If they are the same, then they are the same compound. If they are not the same, then they are different compounds. Moving on to the third law. Your third law is law of multiple proportions. Now, as the name suggests, there is something to do with multiplicity here, as in like multiple substances. So the law says, if two elements form more than one compound, then the ratio in which the elements combine are multiples. And that's a very simple way of putting it. Let me put it in a little more understandable way. When carbon and hydrogen form multiple compounds, for the same amount of carbon, if you check how much hydrogen is reacting with it or how much hydrogen is present with it. For one carbon, you have 4 here. And for 2 carbons, you have 6 here, right? So for 1 carbon, you have 4 in the first compound. For 2 carbons, you have 6 in the second compound. For the same amount of one element, తీసుకోవాలి. ఇక్కడ different ఉన్నాయి కాబట్టి నేను ఏదో ఒకదాన్ని సింపుల్ చేస్తా. So I'm going to change the 2:6 into 1:3. 2 కి 6 అయితే 1 కి 3 కదమ్మా. So for 1 carbon, how much hydrogen is there? 3. Okay, so I'm going to rephrase and retell my law. So for the same amount of carbon, now I have both same amounts. For the same amount of carbon, if you check the ratio of hydrogen that is present in the 2 compounds, it is 4:3. For the same amount of carbon, if you check the amount of hydrogen, it is 4:3. So the law says, you always get simple ratios like this and never will you get complicated ratios. Complicated ratios and 1.7:1.9 or 2.3:3.2. You're not going to get stupid ratios like this. The ratios are going to be simple whole number ratios. Now, till what number can I take as simple whole number? Because if you write 1.9:1, I can always write it as 19:10. Now, is this simple or not? So what counts as simple whole number ratios? Simple number ratios like 7:8, 5:9. These are all simple numbers. So when do they become not simple numbers? Anything beyond 15 is generally not taken as a simple number. Below 15, asal below 10 unte best. So beyond 10 is usually not taken as a simple whole number ratio. You can stretch it up to 15 if you want, but beyond that is not really an option. Okay. So I'm rephrasing my law again from the beginning. So if you take 2 elements which combine with each other to form more than one compound, then the ratio of element 2 which combines with the same amount of element 1 is a simple whole number ratio. Like in this case, the amount of oxygen which combines with 2 atoms of hydrogen is 1 here and it is 2 here. So the ratio of oxygen in the 2 compounds which combines with the same amount of hydrogen in the 2 compounds is 1:2. So this 1:2 is a simple whole number ratio. Okay. So amount of oxygen that combines with the same amount of hydrogen is a simple whole number ratio. This is the law. So how do you know and what kind of questions do you get in this law? Question model 1. They'll give you multiple compounds between the same 2 elements. For example, N2O, NO, NO2, N2O3. What do these represent? Obviously, they represent law of multiple proportions. Ala tells niku. Why can't it be any other law? They're showing multiple compounds between the same 2 elements whose numbers are all whole numbers, student. So this represents law of multiple proportions. So whenever you see multiple compounds between same 2 elements, it represents law of multiple proportions. Number 2, what kind of question? So when you do some calculations, okay, and suppose one compound formula meeku XO2 అని వచ్చేస్తే మీకు X ఎవరో తెలీదు. So generally ఏదో calculation చేశారు. One compound's formula you got as XO2. Another compound, suppose you're getting XO2.99. Then it implies that from this law, you cannot have 2.99 because for the same amount of X, the amount of O should be simple whole number ratios. So mere calculation lo approximation valla I got this 2.99, but otherwise the formula should have been XO3. That is what the law implies. The formula should have actually been XO3 But because of the approximations, I got 2.99. So this law helps to determine formulae of unknown compounds. So manakaite nenu sulfur undanukondi, ippudu I know sulfur forms SO2, sulfur forms SO3. But back in the days when scientists were experimenting, they knew about SO2. They did not know about SO3. Some scientist found a new gas in which there is only sulfur and oxygen. He's doing some calculations with percentage of sulfur, percentage of oxygen, and he ended up finding out sulfur and oxygen is 2.98. He found that out. So he said, okay, everyone write down a sulfur trioxide, or maybe he wouldn't name it trioxide. He'll say sulfur new oxide, SO 2.98. So scientists back then said, no. Whoever gave the law said, no, that is not how it works. You must have done some kind of approximation. That's why you got 2.98. But actually your element or oxygen is SO3 there. So the compound you found is actually SO3. So andukane eppudaina sare, if you find hydrocarbons, or anyone for that matter, usually the question is with hydrocarbons because carbon and hydrogen form so many hydrocarbons, right? That's why. So if you ever find out the formula like this, C2H 5.9 or C2H 6.05, the law says, no, you are not allowed to write like this. You have to write it as C2H6. You got 5.9 only because of your approximation. Okay. And this one has to be C2H6. You got only 6.05 because of your approximation. So this law helped determine the molecular formulae for a lot of unknown compounds back in the day. మనకి ఇప్పుడు అదంత పెద్ద ఏముంది నాకు ఆల్రెడీ తెలుసు అది obviously 2.99 వస్తే నేను 3 పెడతా because I know whole numbers only have to be there. No, you know all that because you've gotten used to it over the years. No teacher has ever given you a compound with CH 3.97. No one has ever written this. Methane anagane CH 3.97, no one writes. That is why, since you have never seen this, you never write it. But back in the days when they were trying to find out molecular formulae, they didn't know this rule that it has to only be whole numbers. So they came up with the rule. And how did they come up with the rule? By declaring this as a law of chemical combination. So this law says, whenever elements are present, they have to be in simple whole number ratios if you already know they are forming multiple compounds. So with the same element, carbon, the amount of hydrogen that reacts is a simple whole number ratio. Actual law says the weight of hydrogen which combines with the same weight of carbon is a simple whole number. Adi actual law. Kan nenem cheppanu nen weights bodulo moles rastanu. It's okay. Instead of saying 2 grams and 16 grams, I can say 2 moles and 1 mole. So I'm going to use weights bodulo, I'm going to use moles. So your question number 2, you will have sums on that in your book. So model number 2 may the questions ela untayante, they'll give you formula of one of the oxide of X is XO2 and the other oxide has X and O in this proportion by weight. So they'll tell you how much of X is there and how much of O is there by weight. They'll give you the atomic weight. So you know the atomic weight of X, you know the atomic weight of oxygen, and you find out how many moles are there. And you find that for every 1 mole of X, you're getting 2.98 moles of oxygen. Vadichina calculation tho ala ochindi naaku, nenem cheyaledu. Okay. So ala ochinappudu, as soon as you see the 2.98, you have to conclude that the formula has to be XO3. Now, how did you conclude that? Because I can see that if this is 2, this cannot be 2.98. It has to be 3. But no one has to tell you that. We are so used to it nowadays that as soon as you get 2.98, I'm pretty sure you'll write it as XO3 and you're not going to write it as XO 2.98. Now, no idiot will do this. They'll automatically write this. So there's not much to teach in the second one. The third model questions, revisiting that law of definite proportion I did earlier. Hydrocarbon X, hydrocarbon Y, and hydrocarbon Z. So hydrocarbon X has 75% carbon and 25% hydrogen. Hydrocarbon Y has 12 grams of carbon and 3 grams of hydrogen. Hydrocarbon Z has 12 grams of carbon and 4 grams of hydrogen. Now, just by looking at this table, you can clearly see that compound X and Z both have 12 grams of carbon, but they have different amounts of hydrogen. So for the same amount of carbon, if you have same amount of hydrogen, then Y and Z would have been the same compound. But for the same amount of carbon, since you have different amounts of hydrogen, which are in simple whole number ratios, Y and Z, these two depict your third law, which is law of multiple proportions. Okay, I hope that's clear. I'm repeating again. For the same amount of carbon, you have different amounts of hydrogen. You don't have to check if they're in simple whole number ratios. They will obviously be, because in nature, that is how they are going to follow the law for sure. Meeredo kavalante experimental you can change the values and give, but it would be an incorrect question. In nature, obviously, they will follow law of multiple proportions. Okay. Next, if you check out compound X and compound Y, check out compound X and Y. Now they are in percentages and weights. So I have to either convert percentage to weight or weight to percentage. Since both these are already in weights, it would be smarter to convert this also into weight. But during the question, during the exam, it doesn't really matter which one you convert to what, because some people percentage is comfortable, some people weight is comfortable. So I'll do both of them. If I change this to weight, it is 75 grams and 25 grams in every 100 grams. That's not really comfortable, but I can clearly see 75 unte 25 undi, which means if I have 3 grams, then I will have 1 gram. I hope you can see that. But since the other two are 12, I feel like multiplying and making this 3 as 12. How do I make it? I'll multiply by 4. So I get 12 grams. So that when I multiply by 4, I get 4 grams. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this. What did I do? I took a 100 gram sample such that carbon is 75 grams and hydrogen is 25 grams. So if 75 grams is present, then 25 grams is present, which means if 3 grams is present, 1 gram is present, which means multiply by 4. If 4 grams is present, 12 grams is present. So I'm saying 75 is to 25 as mathematics. 12 is to 4 antunnanu. Okay. So that I have 12 common. Well, why should I have 12 common? So that I can compare all the weights. That will make it easier, right? So now look at X and Y. X and Y have the same amount of carbon, but they have different amounts of hydrogen. So again, they depict law of multiple proportions because they have different amounts of hydrogen. What about compound X and Z? Let me use a different color. What about compounds X and Z? In compound X and Z, for the same amount of carbon, you have the same amount of hydrogen. So carbon to hydrogen ratio is a constant, which means it is law of definite or constant proportions. Okay. So amount of carbon to hydrogen is same in X and Z. Therefore, it is law of definite proportions. You can do the same sum by converting everything to percentages. Let's see how to convert them to percentages. This is 75/25. The total weight is 15 for Y. So 12 by 15 into 100. And this is 3 by 15 into 100, which is 80% and 20%. Last one, 12 by, total weight is 16. 12 by 16 into 100. This is 4 by 16 into 100. So this is 75%, 25%. So look at it in terms of percentages, guys. For the same percentage of carbon, the percentages of hydrogen are same. So X and Z represent law of definite proportion. Your percentages of carbon itself are different. Hydrogen are also different. So for different percentages, you have law of multiple proportions. Same thing applies for even Y and Z also. Y and Z are also different percentages. Kada. So in the I showed you this relation, right? So if you have same compound, then you will have same percentage. If you have different compounds, then different percentages. That's why I wrote this. Therefore, same percentages, which means same compound. That is law of definite proportion. Whereas if you have different percentages, you have different compound. So Y and Z are different compounds, whereas X and Z are same compound. Law number 4. Law of reciprocal proportions. This law states that when you have 3 elements which mutually combine with each other, So దీని నుంచి only theoretical questions వస్తాయమ్మా మనకి. So this law says if you have three mutually combining elements and if you take their compounds, for these two I'm taking CO2, for this I'm going to take H2O. So if you take their compounds, the amount of hydrogen and oxygen which combine with the same amount of carbon. So with the same amount of carbon, check how much hydrogen and oxygen are there. Sorry, hydrogen here is 4, hydrogen here is 2, right? So what is the ratio of hydrogen and oxygen which combine with the same amount of carbon and choose? It's 2:1, right? This 2:1 is either equal to or a multiple of the ratio in which they combine with each other. So the ratio in which they combine with each other, that is your hydrogen and oxygen combined with each other, is also 2:1 kada, in this particular compound. So the law says if you have three mutually combining elements, the amount of element 2 and 3 which combine with the same amount of element 1 is either equal to or a multiple of the amount in which 2 and 3 combine with each other. Let me put it in terms of names, okay? The amount of hydrogen and oxygen which combine with each other, the ratio in which hydrogen and oxygen combine with each other, is either equal to or a multiple of the ratio in which hydrogen and oxygen combine with the same amount of carbon. So in this case, it is 2:1 on the top, it is 2:1 at the bottom, so they match. What if I change my compound? If I take H2O2 instead of H2O. So if I take this compound, this ratio is 1:1. So I'm now going to say 2:1 is a multiple of 1/1 kada. So bad. So this 2:1, I'll say is now a multiple of 1/1. Okay. So the law is not that they have to be equal. The law is that the amount of hydrogen and oxygen which combine with the same amount of carbon is either equal to or a multiple of the amount in which they combine with each other. So what kind of questions do you get in this? The question will be only theoretical based, only one model question in this, and the question will be straightforward. He'll say carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and carbon disulfide depict which law? Clearly, oxygen is common. So the amount of carbon and sulfur which combine with the same amount of oxygen is either equal to or a multiple of. So equal ratio 1:1. It's either equal to or a multiple of 1:2. Obviously 1/1 is twice of 1/2, right? So it's either equal to or a multiple of each other. Okay. So these three depict law of reciprocal proportions. So what is the practical application of this law? Again, for us who are the new generation, it is very obvious that if carbon oxygen is CO2, sulfur oxygen is SO2, carbon disulfide is CS2. But back in the days when they newly discovered that carbon and sulfur can form CS2, back in the day when they discovered newly that carbon and sulfur form CS2, that time they didn't know it was CS2. So they were like, can it be 1.99? Can it be CS 2.6? Can it be all these numbers? So now with this law, we can say, no, it cannot be this, it cannot be this. It has to be CS2. Okay. That's the latest conclusion, Laga. Okay. But manake enti adu very obvious. We know carbon, not just for carbon, sulfur, any two elements, it has to be this. So what is the application of this? If you come up with a new element, right now we have till 118 kada, approximately atomic numbers. Suppose tomorrow some 140 element is discovered. Atomic number 140 is discovered. And we know that it's combining with oxygen. And it's also combining with carbon. So when I know that, I can automatically say that new element E, or E is actually, yeah, the new element E or the new element X, when it forms an oxide, it cannot have numbers like this. I know that. Why? Because I'll say because of this reciprocal proportions. So this is like using the law of multiple proportions across different elements. So law of multiple proportions was for only two elements. Now multiple proportions nunchi reciprocal proportions ki when you move on, it is across different elements. So multiple is only for A and B. Now with reciprocal, I can introduce a new element C also into the picture. Okay. So basically, from multiple proportions and reciprocal proportions, we can conclude that always, whenever you have stoichiometric compounds, okay, this is all valid only for stoichiometric compounds. What are stoichiometric compounds? Those which are normally formed by reaction of A and B, not in weird ways. So when you have those compounds, they have to always have whole numbers over there. You can't have decimals over there. So your next law is law of combining volumes, Avogadro's law of combining volumes. So Avogadro not just gave this law, he was doing a lot of experiments with the amount of gas and the volume of the gas occupied and all that. So he was basically working with gases. So he said, if two gases combine with each other and form gaseous products also, then if you measure the volume of gases under same conditions, now conditions is pressure and temperature. So if you measure the volume of these gases under same conditions, these volumes are always in simple whole numbers. So basically, indirectly, he gave the balancing of reactions. I'll tell you how. So he said if nitrogen and hydrogen are combining with each other to give ammonia gas, he measured the volumes and he said, under same pressure and temperature conditions, if you measure the volumes of these three gases, they're always in simple whole number ratios. So now we already know balancing of reactions. So manaku already tells ikkada 3 undali, ikkada 2 undali. So ippudu nenu deen law ke apply chesta chudandi. I know 1 mole of nitrogen combines with 3 moles of hydrogen to give 2 moles of ammonia. This I know because I know balanced equations. Hit and trial to balance chese, I'm able to do this. But back in the days, without knowing this itself, Avogadro concluded that 1 liter of nitrogen was combining with 3 liters of hydrogen to give 2 liters of ammonia. There is no law of conservation of volumes, Amma. There is no law of conservation of volumes. There is no law of conservation of moles also. There is only law of conservation of weight. He said, if I take same 1 atmosphere pressure and same 25 degrees Celsius, and I measure the volumes of these 3 gases, then I'm getting that 1 liter is combining with 3 liters and giving me 2 liters. So he basically is saying that when you are balancing equations, they have to be simple whole number ratios. So do you understand such a great conclusion that is? So indirectly, Avogadro is suggesting that stoichiometric coefficients are simple whole number ratios. But that is also such a big revelation. For you and me, it might seem a very obvious thing that stoichiometric coefficients, obviously, I'm not going to say 2.6 nitrogen will combine with 3.1 hydrogen. No, I'm obviously not going to say that. I have seen that they are simple whole number ratios right from my childhood. But when they didn't know this, when they didn't know in what ratio the substances were combining, when the word mole wasn't yet introduced, it was a huge deal to say this statement. If you're taking 1 liter nitrogen, the amount of hydrogen that is combining with it is a whole number. Saying that is a very huge thing. So that's why this is given as a law now. It's a law of chemical combination for us. Always, gases combine in simple whole number ratios. And when they produce gases also, they're always in simple whole number ratios. Any 2 reactant gases, any 2 product gases, any reactant with any product, all these are always simple whole number ratios. These are your 5 laws of chemical combination. Now, all these laws are only valid for stoichiometrically reacting substances. Now, what are these non-stoichiometric substances? In the future, in the other chapters, you're going to come across substances like this. FeO is common. Fe 0.980 is uncommon. Okay. So compounds like this, you're going to come across those in the future. They are not stoichiometric compounds. So these non-stoichiometric compounds we'll deal with later. Okay, they're defective compounds that you'll do in a chapter called solid state. So we're not talking about those compounds. We are talking about any stoichiometric compound. Always and always, it has to follow all these 5 laws. Now, these are again applicable only to chemical combination, not nuclear reactions. Why do I make that so important? Why is that statement important? Especially your first law, which is your law of chemical combination. In this, you need not actually have conservation of mass if you're taking up a nuclear reaction. In fact, In a nuclear reaction, there is no law of conservation of mass. Mass can be created, mass can be destroyed in your nuclear reactions. Okay, so మీరు initial reactant 2 grams తీసుకుంటే final product 3 grams వస్తుంది. That is how nuclear reactions are. You can manipulate them. You can produce energy by destroying mass. You can create mass by taking energy. So mass can be converted to energy, energy can be converted to mass. So physics law, you're going to do law of conservation of energy. Chemistry law, we do law of conservation of mass. Both become invalid in the chapter nuclear physics / chemistry. Nuclear physics, nuclear chemistry. We're going to do a common chapter with physics people. In that chapter, both the laws become invalid. There is no law of conservation of energy. There is no law of conservation of mass. Till then, in physics, normal physics, or in chemistry, which is normal chemical combinations, we have law of conservation of mass. And in physics, you have law of conservation of energy. In chemistry also, we'll be doing thermodynamics, where we have law of conservation of energy. Okay. So unless you have a nuclear reaction involved, your law of conservation of mass is valid. Because in all your chemical reactions, it's only the outer electrons which participate, and it's never the nucleus. The nucleus never participates in a chemical reaction.